What if death is an illusion and near death experiences, psychedelics, and meditation are showing you that reality is just an image in the mind? Robert Greene, the famous author of 48 Laws of Power, and Alex O'Connor talk about exactly this. And if you didn't know, Robert Greene suffered a stroke, and he'll explain it in this video, but he starts talking about near death experiences and what they feel like, and why specific cultures recognize this experience of oneness. So you already know that it's in this channel. I claim that there's only one consciousness and all reality is happening within it. Listen to what I'm saying, because if you really grasp it, things will just click and make sense moving forward. But with that, let's get right into it.
You feel yourself becoming one with everything around you. The discriminating mind, to use the Buddhist concept, is appearing, and everything appears one. It's an oceanic sensation. I have a story in the book from this woman. Have you ever heard of Jill Bolte Taylor?
I don't think so.
Okay. She's a neuroscientist who in the 90s, she was in her late 30s, had a very powerful stroke, much worse than mine. She had what's called a hemorrhagic stroke. Mine was ischemic. Mine was a blood clot. Hers was blood flowing into her brain, right? Very serious. And as the blood is flowing into her brain, all of those filtering mechanisms are shutting down. People don't realize that vision, looking, is a creation of the brain. The brain filters what we see, right? So the material comes in, and scientists call that V1. That's the initial sensation. It's just patterns and dots of light, right? That's all we actually really see in V1. And the brain takes all those dots and it creates a picture, right? But it's a picture that we're familiar with because the brain doesn't want to give us things that are going to overload us. She saw V1. Her brain was dissolving. She saw what it was like, the world without it being put into a picture. She saw the dots. She saw the haziness. She felt as she was taking a shower as it was coming onto her, that she was literally melting into the shower itself and dissolving away as she's having a near-death experience. It's the brain. She's literally seeing what happens when the brain is shutting off one part after another, after another, after another. That's real. That's not hokum. There's something, and she's a scientist and she wrote about it.
When reality is shutting down before you, right? And the body is dying because the body is part of reality. Well, that which knows the body, that which knows your five senses, that which knows your context in history and your friends, your family, and the things you like, all of that starts shutting down. That's all your whole ego, right? Because that's part of memory in the brain. But what is it that is persisting behind that, that is watching reality fade? And the reason why reality fades is because there's no actual division in anything. You'll hear Alex O'Connor talk about mereological nihilism. These divisions between everything in the world is just a mental construct, a concept in the mind. And so as that fades away, consciousness is still present to see it. And what part of you intuits that when this body dies, you will persist, either in hell, heaven, or reincarnation? You know intuitively that your true identity is consciousness.
These cliches of near-death experiences, psychedelic experiences, intense meditation experiences are cliches for a reason. I mean, you might think it's a bit sort of hippie and funky to say, oh, I'm one with everything. But the fact that an idea like that comes up so often, everywhere, and in such a way that famously can't quite be explained, must mean something. And I often tell people that when it comes to drugs in particular, I think like all of the cliches are true. You take like a sort of low dose of a psychedelic drug and you stare at the sky and you start seeing essentially kaleidoscopic, patterns, and you go like, oh man, like it really is like that. That's what actually happens. You take a higher dose and you start sort of feeling as though your own sense of self is beginning to dissipate, and you're like, oh man, like yeah, they weren't kidding when they talked about the ego death. Like these cliches are true and universal, and it's the fact that they are independently experienced by different people, all reporting the same thing, that makes it so scientifically interesting.
There's a universality to it, is because the concept of self is exactly that, just a concept. It's something. It's a mental construct. We know that what composes this body is the same thing that that composes the reality around the body, because the body is part of reality. Just like a tree generates leaves and fruit, and the fruit is as much a part of the tree as the tree is, but it doesn't identify as something different. When you realize this, you realize that ego is just a tool That's not who you really are. And so because of the fact that we have these bodies who look at the one reality from multiple angles, and we have memory, then we create these minds, and those minds hijack the identity from consciousness and give it to the ego. But in what way could we possibly be separate from reality? We are literally one with everything. The world nourishes us. It heats our blood. It flows our blood. It blooms flowers. We like the smell of flowers. We recognize the coherence in reality. There's a floor beneath our feet on which we can walk. The world is full of meaning. Why would it be? Why should it be that we have a subjective experience in reality? Because it's intended. Because the whole point of reality is to experience.
Huxley himself, I believe, talked about what he called the axial revolution. I think it's the right word, or the axial period. And basically, he was looking at the world like around 400 or 500 BC. And all of these ideas in countries that had no communication with each other were occurring at the same time. Like with Buddhism, Buddha is, I don't know what century he actually was, the 4th century BC, and something, concepts of the oneness of this sort of enlightenment. But then you had ancient Greek writers, the pre-Socratics, who were talking about that, like Heraclitus and Empedocles. And then you had Chinese writers talking about the same thing. And I've always been fascinated by the Aztecs. They had these same concepts actually in a very strange way and very poetic and beautiful expressions of it. So these are happening all around the world in different cultures that are not contacted with each other. There's something about the universality of it that connects to the human brain. And we could connect drug experience, near-death experiences, these kind of initiation rituals, or some of those saunas that people would take. They all lead to the same kind of, or meditation, right? So there's something very real there, and it can't be dismissed as just hokum or hallucinations.
The reason why all of these cultures, and cultures are just egos in, amongst a tribe of people, all of us, every single one of us, is experiencing reality through consciousness. There's no other way. And so you understand reality through consciousness. So you will turn your attention to it. And you can turn that same awareness, that same attention toward itself, and recognize that the world is made of knowing. I'll leave it there. Thanks for the attention. Leave me some likes, some comments, some subscriptions, hopefully. And I appreciate all the attention. I'll see you in the next video.